let's make sure our sound is hooked up here. All right, let's do a little utility today. Micro, obviously. Um, we should just recognize that utility is tested very heavily every year, it seems like. Always lots of multiple choice questions and then full FRQs. We won't be touching any FRQs today, but we will be working on some of these multiple choice questions. So, the things we need to sort of be aware of for utility, right? We want to make sure we have a good definition in our head of what utility is. The relationships and the graphs, the relationship between utility, and that's, you should be able to draw this graph. The understanding is that margin utility starts declining from the very first taco I consume. My marginal utility, the utility I gain from eating each additional taco, starts going down from the very first unit of taco I consume. I understand that as this margin utility is positive, I'm gaining something from eating that first taco. That's going to add to my total utility. What we understand is total utility goes up, it hits a maximum, and then it will start decreasing. Where total utility is maximized, we recognize that marginal utility is 0. I consume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tacos, and then I hit that point. If I was to consume that 6th taco, my marginal utility would be negative, and that's why it's pulling down your total utility. You should be able to draw and describe this graph. It will help you in all of these questions here, or a lot of these questions anyway. These relationships just have to be known. Anyway, it helps. All right, let's jump into these and see if we can make sense of this. Number 7 is just definitional. I think in a given time period, a person consumes more and more of a good or service, and as a result, enjoys each additional unit less and is willing to pay less for each additional unit. This behavior is consistent with the law of, obviously, diminishing marginal utility. Right? I know that as I eat more tacos, that I will gain less and less utility, value, satisfaction from every taco I eat after that first one. That should make sense to you. That is the whole purpose of our marginal utility curve being downward sloping. The additional satisfaction received from consuming an additional unit of good is called, well, what a surprise, marginal utility. Satisfaction, utility can be value, satisfaction, they can call it utils, which is just a made-up term to describe happiness or satisfaction, because let's face it, you can't really measure happiness or satisfaction. You could rank happiness and satisfaction. One, I like toys better than I like soda, right? Toys is my first choice and sodas are my second choice. But I can't say that toys give me 10 units of happiness where sodas only give me 8. That doesn't really make sense. How do you measure that? You can't really. You can certainly rank them. Don't worry too much about that. Ranking us recognize what's going on here. Number 20. According to the law of diminishing marginal utility, which of the following is true? Now, I'm going to stop here for a second. I kind of blow through all of these because if I didn't, they'd be very long. But you should sort of stop me. As soon as I read that first part, stop it, look at what's going on here, read the questions, and then see if you can answer it ahead of me so you know what's going on. Or you could test yourself, or you could just watch me blow through it. That's kind of passive, but anyway, each to his own. According to the law of diminishing marginal utility, which of the following is true? Total satisfaction decreases as more units. The additional satis. Now we are talking about marginal, which means additional or the change in. So I like the word additional. I just keep that in my head anytime I see marginal. The additional satisfaction received from consuming extra units of a good decreases as consumption of the good increases. I kind of like that. Additional satisfaction received from consuming extra units of a good decreased as consumption, receives from consuming extra unit increases as it does not increase, right? We are talking about marginal. It falls from the very first unit. So we should recognize it again, be able to draw it, recognize it, that marginal utility continuously falls, total utility increases. Again, I want to make that point that as long as marginal utility is positive through here, that's adding to your total utility. If I eat one taco and I get 10 units of satisfaction, I eat the second taco, I get 8 units of satisfaction. Well, those two to a taco, those are my marginal utility. That's marginal right there. That's marginal right there. But if I add those two together, total utility, make sure you understand that. We'll practice it over here a little bit. Let's make sure we understand the relationships. That's why we're able to draw it. According to the theory of consumer behavior, which of the following decreases first as additional units of a product are consumed? Well, take a look at it. What decreases first? Yeah, no kidding, Charles. Margin utility, nicely done. 34, the following chart shows the total utility that Juan received from consuming various amounts of chocolate candy bars each day. Now, I'm just going to give you a little hint. If you see total anything, you can be pretty sure that you're going to have to figure out marginal, right? If I give you total revenue, you're going to have to find marginal revenue. If I give you total product, you're going to have to find marginal product. I give you total benefit, you're going to have to find marginal benefit. If I give you total utility, you can be pretty sure you're going to have to find marginal utility. Now, sometimes this makes a lot of sense to people, sometimes it doesn't, but our margin utility is the change in total utility. So if going from 0 candy bars to 1, my marginal utility is 40. Now I know we're going from here to here, but when you draw it in the middle there, lots of people want to draw it in between the 0 and the 40 to show that margin utility. I'm like a child, I can't do that, so I'm not going to do it. I find it annoyingly confusing. When I go from 40 to 70, my margin utility is 30. When I go from 70 to 90, it's 20. 90 to 100 is 10. And then 80, this looks like a negative 20. So recognize that I put my margin utilities directly out from that first unit. The margin utility is 40. Do it however you want, or however your teacher has told you to do it, or you could do it like the way I do it. Now let's see if we can figure out the right answer. His margin utility from the first candy bar is greater than his margin utility from the second candy bar. Well, that's 40 and that's 30, so I like that one, but let's keep reading. These guys are tricky. You see one you think is true? There could be a lot of true answers in here, not necessarily with this question. But you want to make sure it's just not true in your understanding, but that it's true about this problem. So his margin utility from the fourth candy bar is greater. That doesn't make any sense. His margin utility increases at a constant rate. Well, we know his margin utility decreases from the very first unit. I can't say that enough. So he first experiences diminishing margin utility with the consumption of the fifth candy bar. No, his margin utility goes negative with the fifth, but don't confuse that with diminishing margin utility. Diminishing margin utility continuously declines all the way through from the first candy bar to the fifth. His greatest margin utility comes from the no. Okay, it is. Easy enough. All right, let's look at number 35 here. When total utility is maximized, marginal utility is, again, draw the graphs. Have the graphs in your head so you can see them. What I recognize is that when total marginal utility declines from the very consumption of the first good, as it's positive but declining, it's going to add to your total utility at, we're going to say at an decreasing rate. So total utility increases, we can see that, but it's slowing down. It's going up and up and up. It's getting slower and slower until finally it hits a maximum right there, and that's where margin utility is 0, is where total utility is maximized. Total utility increases at a decreasing rate. They've asked that a couple times. Make sure you understand that relationship. So when total utility is maximized, marginal utility is equal to 0. Nicely done. All right, let's look at number 20 and 21 here. Now they've given us margin utility of pizzas, margin utility. These are these calculations that we have to do. Let's see if we can make sense of this. Now, this is sort of like that per dollar spent marginal utilities. What we should know is that our formula here, and I'm not really going to go over number 50 because I find it annoyingly painful, but you should recognize that you should be able to look at this and understand that that's the formula we need. I'm not going to read all this gobbledygook. You'll just glaze over. I glaze over too. Understand the formula for marginal utility per dollar spent. And we want to make sure that we say it's marginal utility per dollar spent of one good. We want it to equal the marginal utility per dollar spent of the other good. So this is our formula. Put it somewhere, write it down, make sure you understand what's going on here. When I first look up here for the first unit of pizzas or the first marginal utility of a pen, well, the utility of a pizza is 20 for the first one. The utility of a pen is 8. Now, if I asked you which one you would choose just knowing that information, you go, well, Charles, I'm going to choose pizza because it obviously gives me more utility for that first unit than the first pen would. And I would say that's fine, but we need to make sure we take into account the price. The price of pizza is $2 a pizza, where the price of pens is $1. So you want to make sure you take in, this is what this whole formula here is talking about. We take our margin utility and divide it by the price, and that's going to give us our actual utility taking into account how much things cost. Because just to say that it gives me 20 when the price of pizzas is twice as much as a pen doesn't make a lot of sense. So what we're going to do is we're just going to simply take our marginal utility of whatever they give us, and we're going to divide it by 2 all the way down. And this gives us 4, and then we're at what? 4.5, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7, and then 8, and then 9, and then 10. These are the numbers we need. That is our marginal utility divided by the price per dollar spent. And this, you could just do the 1 all the way down, but it's not going to change anything because it's by 1. So these are our numbers. So now we're still looking here up top. And I'm just going to change. Now, this is what our FRQs look like. But we're doing the same kind of relationship with FRQs. So the sooner you know this, the better. All right, so looking at this, they always give us a certain amount of money. We've got $10 to spend. $10. And he spends it all on pizza or pens, and the price of pizza is 2. We got it. Price of pens is 1. The student will maximize utility by purchasing. Well, let's do it. We're going to spend, the first thing we're going to buy is 1 pizza because it gives us 10 margin utilities per dollar spent. But that's okay. For now, we're just going to call them by the numbers, right? So that would be our first purchase. We'll buy 1 pizza. Our second purchase is going to be another pizza because it would give us 9 utils of satisfaction. Then we've got to look at this now. For our third purchase, would we buy our first pen or would we buy our third pizza? And you would say, Charles, they both have 8. They're both going to give us 8 utils no matter which one we buy. And I would say, absolutely. Aren't you smart? We can buy both of these. Right? Because they give us the same one. We could have bought that one. We've got enough money. Let's buy them both. We're at $2, $4, $6, $7. We got 3 more dollars to spend. This is a 7. That's a 7. We're going to buy both of those and spend our $3 that we have left of our $10. What does it call it? Anyway, allowance, whatever. So it looks like we bought 1, 2, 3, 4 pizzas and 2 pens. Let's see, 4 and 2. Easy enough. I like it. All right, if the student purchased 2 units of pizza and 2 units of pens, the student's total utility would be, understand that we add up margin utilities to equal total utilities, right? So the student purchased 2 units of pizzas and 2 units of pens. 2 units of pizzas. Our marginal utility is 20 and 18. Let's say that's 38. And 2 pens, 8 and 17 is 15. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 3, 4, 5, 53. I think we did that correctly. All right, excellent job. Again, look at number 50 here. You have to know this relationship, this formula here that is very important for you to understand utility and how to go through these. This one is just sort of asking anything about the formula again. We want these margin utilities per dollar spent to equal each other. Notice where we stopped. Not only did we run out of money, now they wouldn't have given you a problem. I guess they have asked it in the past, but they've never given you a problem. We're always going to end up where the margin utility per dollar spent is 7, and it equals this 7 over here. So these two are going to equal the margin utility of each of a good to its prices are equal. The margin utility to its price is equal. We ended up with 7 there and 7 there for pizzas and pens. Make sure we understand how they're asking this question. They're tricky the way they're asking that. All right, and let's look at a couple of these questions. Doubling of incomes and prices. Assume that a consumer spends all of their income on purchase of two goods. If the consumer income doubles and the prices of the two goods double, the quantity of the two goods purchased will, and the answer here is not change. Recognize that if I have $10 and I can buy one, let's just say apple, right? Because the price of that one apple is $10. And then all of a sudden I have $20 in my pocket and now prices of apples go up to $20. Well, I still can only buy one apple, right? Nothing's changed in the ratios there. So this is a game they've asked it a number of times, but these are the released questions that they've asked it. So you're going to see it. Make sure you recognize what's going on here. Assume that Clark spends his entire income on the purchase of two goods of X and Y. If his income and the prices of X and Y double, Clark will buy the same amount of goods. If prices and incomes go up by the same amount, proportionally, we're going to buy the same stuff. Make sure you recognize that. All right, let's keep moving on here. Good job. We're going to talk a little bit about, I did want to talk about this. This is more, I kind of made this one up. This is more like what your unreleased sort of multiple choice questions. And there are lots of them for utility. So we should understand this relationship. They're going to give us something where they've given us what the goods are, they've given us the quantity purchased, the margin utility, and the price. Again, our formula is the margin utility of one good over the price equals the margin utility of the other good. This is our margin utility per dollar spent. What value or satisfaction do we get per $1 spent? And that's kind of the understanding there. So we're going to do hot dogs and we'll do tacos. Hot dogs, the price is $1. They're just going to give you this lots of times. We're just plugging in information here. The margin utility is 10. We can see margin utility divided by price gives us 10. For tacos, the margin utility was 25. And the price was $2. So what is that? 12.5? Now, this is important. What this is saying is that for every dollar spent, hot dogs give me 10 units of satisfaction, whereas tacos give me 12.5 units of satisfaction per dollar spent. Now think about that. Which one would you rather have? Another taco? Another hot dog? Right? Obviously, what we want to do is consume more of the one that gives us the biggest bang for our bucks, right? So we're going to eat the biggest one here. We're going to do margin utility. We're going to use our formulas over price per dollar spent. It tells me for every dollar spent, hot dogs only give me 10 units of satisfaction. For tacos, I get 12.5. I want to consume more tacos. Now, I don't have a great way to explain that. I mean, I've never found it that satisfying, to tell you the truth. But let's just understand what's going on here. If this is my tacos, and they have a higher margin utility, and this is representative of where my hot dogs are on this margin utility curve. If I consume more tacos, margin utility is going to fall for each taco I consume. If I consume less hot dogs, margin utility is going to increase or is higher, and they're going to equalize at a faster rate. So what we want to do in this situation is always consume more of the one that gives us the biggest bang for our buck and less of the one that does not. Always more and less. We want to buy more tacos, less hot dogs. Does that make sense? There's a ton of these. You see them not only in FRQs, but very quickly in multiple choice questions. So you not only have to know that formula, you have to know you're always going to consume more of one and less of the other. There are a ton of these. Make sure you understand that relationship. All right, and I don't know if this helps you. If it does, fantastic. But I think we need to recognize that that's why we consume more of these. Not only because it's giving us the big bang for our buck, but we're kind of equalizing these two according to the prices, right? Uh, yeah, okay. Let's look at number 15 here. There's a little confusion here, and I think we're going to start. No, we'll start here. Uh, that marginal, that's additional, right? The next, it's the choice of making marginal analysis is the a sort of choice as to whether I do more of one thing um, based on the price, right? And the way we think about that, we will always, and I think the easiest way, well, we'll start at 15 and I'll read it, and then I'm just going to draw a graph that should make sense to you. A chemical plant pollutes a river that serves as a water supply for a nearby town. From an economic point of view, pollution from the plant should be reduced until. Now, marginal benefit from cleaner water is equal to the marginal cost of making the water cleaner. Marginal benefit is greater or is maximized. Marginal benefit of cleaner water is zero. Total benefit from clean water is equal to the total cost of making the water cleaner. Total benefit from cleaner water is maximized. Now, the understanding here is almost always we're going to be talking, there are some total cost and total benefit questions, but almost always they're going to be about marginal analysis, right? That's what we're almost always looking for across the board here. We have to recognize that, I'm just going to give you sort of a graph here, that let's say this is our marginal cost. We recognize it as the supply curve, but our costs go up as we do more of something, right? As we clean up more and more parts of the river, the costs are going to increase. Now, as we clean up more and more parts, that first unit of cleaning up the river, because it's so dirty, gives us a huge benefit. And the costs are down here. Compared to the benefit, the costs are much less than the benefit. When the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost, you want to keep producing or consuming. We could be talking about tacos, we could be talking about cleaning the river, whatever. We want to keep cleaning the river as long as the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost. At some point, these two are going to get really close to each other or equal. We want to be as close as we can to where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. That's our sweet spot right there. If the best we can do is get right here, that's fantastic, right? But we would never want to be on this side. We would never want to be on the side where marginal costs are greater than the benefit. Think about that for a second. You walk in, you try on a pair of jeans, and you go, wow, I look great in these jeans. And then you look down and they're $500 a piece. I don't know about you, but I'm not buying a $500 pair of jeans, right? I don't care how good I look in those jeans. I'm not spending $500 on a pair of jeans. The cost was greater than a benefit. We do this every time we pick up anything, and we're paying for it, right? We weigh the cost to the benefit. As long as the benefit is greater than the cost, we will keep producing or consuming. If we're on this side, whatever this is, we want to do less of this because we never want our cost to be greater than the benefit. This is our sweet spot, and we'll get as close to that sweet spot as possible without going over here. So we would want the marginal benefit to equal the marginal cost of making the water cleaner. Could we make the water so clean that you could drink out of the river? Yeah, but it would be very expensive. We'd be way over here. The cost would be much greater than the benefit. Would the water be clean enough to drink out of? Absolutely, but it would harm society. There would be too much money being spent on that. We don't need it to be clean enough to drink, if that makes sense. All right, this question, I almost hesitate to even bring it up. At our current level of consumption, a consumer is willing to pay up to $150 for a bottle of water and up to $1,500 for a diamond ring. Now, this is a throwback to the idea that we couldn't really figure out why water is so expensive but so cheap. Water is so expensive for life, or necessary is a better word. Water is so necessary for life, but it's so cheap, and diamonds are, frivolous, right? But so expensive, right? So the understanding is they couldn't figure out, they had a hard time for this for a long time talking about it. And the understanding was that if I had given you a choice between all the water in the world, the total amount of water, or the total amount of diamonds, which one would you choose? And those who go diamonds, well, you thirst to death. you die of thirst in about 3 days, right? So if you can only have total all the water or all the diamonds, you're going to choose the water because it's necessary. But nobody makes choices like that. I don't choose all of the water in the world or all of the diamonds. I'm buying things marginally, right? So I recognize that water is much more plentiful than diamonds. Therefore, marginally, it's cheaper to buy water than it would be a diamond. So we would want to make sure it is marginal analysis that we're looking at here. The marginal utility of a bottle of water is less than the marginal utility of a diamond ring. You should just recognize. At the end of the day, I don't expect you to see one like that. It's kind of a outlier, but I like it anyway. Let's talk about this one. This is more like what you might see on some of the unreleased questions. They're going to give you a total benefit or the total cost. Again, once you see total benefit and total cost, you're going to think marginal benefit. You're going to think marginal cost, right? Because that's what we're comparing, right? We're looking for the socially optimal spot. That socially optimal spot is where marginal cost and marginal benefit come together. That's our sweet spot, where we want to be or how much we want to consume or how much we want to clean or whatever you want to call it. That's where we want to be, right where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. So I can see my marginal benefit for the first unit is 50. I went from 0 to 50. I went from 0 to 12. The cost was 12. The cost is still less than the benefit, right? So that first one we're definitely going to do at the hours of the museum. I went from 50 to 125, so that's 75. I went from 12 to 100. So what is that? 87? No, 88. Yeah, 88, I think. My cost is greater than my marginal benefit. Now, what we did is we just went from 1 here to 2 right there. We would never do the second one because the cost is greater than the benefit. You see the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. So we would have never done the second one. We would have stopped at number 1 there. Can you see that? It's just a quick sort of understanding of what's going on. All right, let's go down a little bit further. Same kind of question. I'm going to let you read that for just a second. I'll read it. The table above shows the total benefit that Charles gets from eating different quantities. Does it say quantities? Of pears. If pears cost $3, how many should he buy to maximize his consumer surplus? Don't worry about the consumer surplus part. But if they give you a total benefit and they want to know how many you're going to eat, first of all, we have to find marginal benefit. Our marginal benefit for the first one, we went from 0 to 10, would be 10. From 10 to 18, which is 8. 18, 19, 20, that's 7. 25 to 28, that would be a 3. 28, 29, 30, that would be a 2. 30 to 31, that's a 1. This is my marginal benefit. And they've told me what my marginal cost is. For every pair I buy, cost is $3. So my marginal cost is 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. We want to be as close to where marginal cost equals marginal benefit. So our consumption should be 4 pairs. You see how we figured that out? They gave us total. We found marginal. They had given us our marginal cost of $3. Marginal cost all the way down. It doesn't change. So if I was to draw this on a graph, it looks like this. This is my marginal cost, right? And my marginal benefit is obviously downward sloping. Remember how this now, they could call it marginal benefit. It looks a lot like the marginal utility curve, right? Downward sloping. What we recognize is that first unit benefit is greater than cost. So we consume that one, our second one, our third one, and then we stop at our fourth one, where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. I would never want to consume the fifth unit where the cost is $3, because we can see our cost is $3 here, all the way across, and the benefit would be $2. We would never want to do that fifth unit. Cool. All right. Hope that helps a little bit. The only thing I think I've seen that I have not seen on a released exam is this sort of idea if you were buying something, if you had a choice, like the understanding here is that you can either, or these are separate here, but it says if there's a cost-benefit analysis, a local neighborhood would decide to build a new playground if and only if And we'd recognize as long as the total benefit is greater than the total cost, right? That would be what. Now we're not talking about a number of playgrounds. We're only talking about they can either run a sewer line from one building, or they can build a neighborhood playground. Those are two different things. So the understanding here is that if we're choosing one thing to do, we have a choice, or there's 5 choices, but they're all very, very different. Notice the marginal is about consuming more or less of a unit of a good, right? So more cleaning of the river, more pears, right, et cetera, et cetera. This is about choosing something like going to the dentist, the doctor, going to yoga, going to karate, or washing the car. There's a certain amount of benefit attached to it and a certain total cost. We would always want, if we're doing something like this, we always want our total benefit to be greater than our total cost, and that's what we're going to choose. Don't spend too much time on this. We don't see this very often, but you should have it in the back of your head somewhere. That it looks like, what is this, 15? The difference between total benefit and total cost actually is a negative 15. We would not want to do that because it's negative. This looks like a negative 5. We wouldn't choose that one either. Yoga would be a positive 30. This is what, a positive 29? And this is a positive, oops, sorry, I did that wrong. That's 30. This is just 1, a positive 1, and this is a positive 20. In this situation, given this kind of problem, right, we only can choose one thing. We're going to choose the thing that gives us the biggest benefit compared to the cost. Does that make sense? I hope it does. In this situation, we're not talking about the marginal, because we're not hiring 2 dentists compared to 3 dentists, or going to 1 yoga class compared to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. We're talking about doing either this, or this. So given that situation, again, it's never made it to a released exam, but it has been tested in the past very infrequently, but you should just sort of recognize how we're answering that question. All right, that was a very long video. The utility is heavily, and there's probably a good almost dozen FRQs. So spend a lot of time on utility. You can do the multiple choice questions. You're pretty good for all those kind. You're going to see them just like this on your exam. But the FRQs take a lot of effort. All right, keep working hard, and they are on YouTube. I've done all of them, I think. I'm on Wyzant. If you need any tutoring help, keep working hard. Let me know. Just look for Charles W. if you're looking for help on Wyzant. All right, my friends. Take care. Keep working hard. Be safe.